Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Matt Hart's coming. Also, the V-Team takes a look at Medicaid. And Governor Robert Bentley has got some new advisors for a lottery.
Take this down. I want rustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, Indian agents, Mexican bandits, muggers, buggerers, bushwhackers, hornswagglers, horse thieves, bullbags, train robbers, bank robbers, ass kickers, shit kickers, and Methodists.
Could you repeat that, sir?
That's a dream team there, Gov. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics with your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
How's it going?
Thank you.
Good. Crazy week in politics. They're supposed to all be gone, right? Yeah. So it's supposed to be like quiet and
Labor
tranquil.
Day weekend.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I tell you, one of the most interesting things, Jack, and you and I were talking about this earlier. It seems like Matt Hart's team, the Special Prosecution Unit of the Attorney General's office, is growing, and they've expanded staff, and they've gotten some more indictments, we hear.
Well, I think with Mike Hubbard always tried to cut off the money to the AG's office,
right?
Because they were investigating him and putting him on trial. If you look around at all the corruption that's going on and all the purported corruption going on, they probably need a lot more than they just hired.
Well, they do. I mean, they do have a full complement of staff. We understand there's been hirings, new lawyers, Susan, but there's about 4 cases of people being indicted since Hubbard, and we hear there are more to come.
There are, and they're drilling down also to the local levels, not just at the state level. I know that there are 2 women that they indicted this last few weeks that had involved the Contractors Board and the selling of licenses that weren't warranted. They were charged with using their office for personal gain, as well as having forged documents in their possession.
And that was at the state board of contractors.
I didn't even realize that had happened. I guess I just missed it in the news, but so correct me if I'm wrong, these women were selling fake licenses for people to be contractors. And so these contractors didn't know that they were operating without a license.
Well, I don't know that that's the case. I mean, this is the allegations that they were selling them.
They were selling fake licenses.
It was like a Jersey-style deal where, hey, buddy, I need a license for this. Okay.
Well, the documents that are involved here are the documents that these contractors would have to submit to qualify. So apparently, and we're talking about 5 or 6 documents in each one of these indictments, and they're the same. So it looks to me like somebody might have been fudging the books a little bit to be able for that contractor to get that.
Well, and then one woman over who had worked at Revenue was allegedly taking checks and writing herself some checks, Jack. Sounds like
she can't count to get her money through stores, so she's just going to cut the checks herself.
Chicago gutter-style politics.
Yeah. Maybe she could write a check for him some new hair.
It's a little late, I'm afraid.
Yeah, probably too late.
We still got the special grand jury here in Montgomery, right? And there's rumor that we're getting another one in Jefferson County?
Yeah, there's the one here, we hear. Of course, Susan and I got some shots of Governor Bentley, who looked quite dapper that day. Then we hear that's going to heat up come after Labor Day. Wow. And also there's one coming to Jefferson County.
I have some theories on what that could be about. We'll have to talk.
I'm telling you, there may be a lot more grand juries seated very soon in a lot of other counties because, I mean, this public corruption unit is just...
Maybe the AG's office should have a motto that coming to an area near you very soon.
Well, I tell you, that this Matt Hart and his team are dogged. They are aggressive, and man, they get it right. I mean, everybody was stunned by that Mike Hubbard verdict. No one ever thought he'd go to trial. No one ever thought he'd be indicted, and no one thought he'd be convicted, except a few of us and Matt Hart's gang.
That's right.
So I call them the untouchables. Susan, we heard from a guy up in Etowah County this week.
Yes, we did.
That our senator's in trouble.
I talked to one of our fair officials up there this week on another matter who did say that he understands and he would know that there's been some poking around of the Ethics Commission in Etowah County regarding maybe some of the people from there that are represented down here.
You mean like the contracts that Senator Phil Williams all of a sudden got?
It was like days away from indictment, and then.
Well,
the
that's
Spencer
when
Collier thing
the Spencer
unfolded.
Collier thing came up. But I don't think that the AG is going to look the other way on this. He had like 46 contracts that he got in 6 years as an attorney, and some of them are municipalities.
Yeah. Well, we hear he's not running, Jack. Somebody said he wants Mac Butler to take his place, but I don't know that
I
Mac's
heard that
interested.
Mac Butler said, no thanks, but no thanks.
I was surprised. Mac came out on the Facebook and said he was supporting a lottery. I thought that was interesting. Before we get to
That's
the
probably
lottery.
because he's listening to his constituents in Etowah County.
Yeah. Well, Mac's a good guy. He just, I love that picture of him down in New Orleans that we used to have. He's a fun-loving guy, so he doesn't gamble, but I guess he doesn't mind the people voting on it. One thing that's come up is this election of Michael Sentance as the state superintendent. This is getting a lot of attention because this guy, Beth, he is a lawyer, but he didn't keep up his law license. We're hearing all kinds of rumors about how he got hired, and we know that Craig Pouncey got dissed in an anonymous letter, and that's how this guy ended up with the position. Address just a little bit of that.
This is a big deal. Let's, even just looking at him in his hiring process, his resume, we've heard, was completely bloated. It's changed from one state to the next. There's this huge period of unexplained unemployment. And then he didn't fully disclose the fact that he was not a practicing attorney. You can have your Juris Doctorate and not be an attorney, and that's fine. But he didn't necessarily disclose that, and the school board didn't fully vet him, or they would have found that. That's as simple as a phone call, and they would have found that information. There's something going on here that's not right.
Well, Senator Gerald Dial has called for an investigation. I tell you, this thing we learned this week, that it was Mary Scott Hunter, school board member, that went to Tom Albritton, and that started the ball, Susan, on this whole thing that
did.
tanked Greg Pouncey.
Apparently, Albritton contacted Hugh Evans, who's
the general counsel over there.
general counsel over there at Ethics, who contacted
Juliana Dean.
Thank you, Juliana Dean, and said, is there a letter? Apparently, she said yes, because there was a letter. Now, who authored the letter, we don't know.
We don't know.
But he requested that she send him that letter. She did. And then he sent her one saying, we've received a complaint. Now, albeit the letter was anonymous, they cannot move on an anonymous letter, but that set the ball rolling so that weekend at the BCA meeting, we hear it could be spread that Greg Pouncey had an ethics complaint problem.
Jack, we got about 1 minute here. I just think, it's interesting. I like these folks, Stephanie Bell and Betty Peters, but they got caught with their...
Well, Betty Peters got pressure put on her from Alpha, I understand. She wouldn't return calls to her closest allies, asking her how she was going to vote. This is all because there's a behind-the-scenes effort going on to drop the elected board, State Board of Education, to have it appointed. And that is taking more power away from the people and centralizing it into a bunch of idiots in Montgomery.
And my
And the
understanding
people
is...
who brought you small government, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And my understanding is this Sentence guy, that is his mission. That is what he has been hired to do.
Well, I don't, and I agree with you. That's what we're hearing. And I think he's just going to sit back and collect $240,000 a year and go, whatever.
Well, they said in Massachusetts he was anti-Common Core, but he was only anti-Common Core for Massachusetts. He's a pro-Common Core advocate, and the state board, including Stephanie Bell, who is my friend, did not vet him. They just went ahead and voted. They should have delayed the vote.
We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with y'all.
Claire, you know, there's a lot of discussion around town, around the state. Can the lottery come back? What are you hearing?
Well, of course it can. You know, when they come back, I guess 2 days from now, and you know, the McClendon's bill's still out there. It could come back. They could substitute it. They could do something with it. I mean, it's a toss-up. You know, I mean. You got the Indians that don't want it. You got the ones that are left out. There's a lot of fighting over there going on.
Well, Susan, there's 3 days left, and that's an eternity sometimes in the State House.
It is an eternity, but also understand we have Cam Ward's wedding involved here. He's leaving on Monday. Matt McCutcheon is officiating. He's leaving on Wednesday, so we don't have that full 3 days or the full Senate here. I mean.
Jack, could we get held hostage by Cam's wedding?
So there's personal issues come before the state business. That's what I'm.
Where's his wedding? Is it like Antigua or somewhere?
Like that.
Someplace I can't go.
In his defense, this was planned long before we ever knew about a
well,
special
we're
session.
very happy for Senator Ward. We wish him all the best. You know, what we're hearing is that they want to come together and find a solution before it's too late. But I don't know. It's like Claire said, can you get the tribe on one side? Can you get Victoryland and Green Track and Houston County and Lowndes County? Can you make all those people happy, Jack?
No, not at one time for sure. But I think they really need to just take a breath, and they need to talk about this between now and the next regular session of the legislature.
And you know, reality is, like we talked about, they need to push all these lobbyists aside when it comes to this, and the senators need to push their special interests from their districts aside and say, we've got to do what's right to fix Medicaid.
Well, and
that's
I agree.
There's got to be some leadership to do that instead of, I got to feather my county, I got to feather my county. I mean, they've
Funny
got
you
to
should
do.
use the word feather.
Okay.
Yeah, Bentley's gonna. Well, that's the whole deal with Bentley trying to make a compact with the Indians. He wants them to pay $250 million in advance of their whatever taxation would be or whatever, in order to fix Medicaid.
Now, I've heard rumor there could be a second special session. I don't know.
Yeah, we're hearing
It
that.
could.
He's lost what little mind he has left if he's going to call another.
How do you really feel, Jack?
Well, I mean, the problem is, Susan, nobody's listening to him anyway.
No.
They only
No.
come back because they have to. And there was McClendon pushing that bill, and he did a great job, but it went nowhere. I mean, you had people working against it, you had people working for it, and it died in the Senate. That was Bentley's bill.
But you know what? They all need to stop in their tracks and think, if we keep doing this as elected members of the House and Senate, the citizens are out there are going to notice this, and they're all going to have a little tough re-election if they come in and continue not to do what they've got to do as elected officials. Providing a budget in the general fund and the education are the only two bills that they are by the Constitution required to do.
Well, there's always so much mischief. You really, it's hard to know who all the players are. We do have an introduction of a new player. He's coming back. We call it Welcome Back Carter. Clinton Carter is coming back to the Bentley administration. We hear Jack, he's coming in to work revenue and finance, but I think he's just laying the groundwork for something else, don't you?
Well, you know, there are rumors that Bill Newton is going to leave and that he might be the heir apparent. He's got a good reputation, where some people in the Bentley administration don't, but he has a very good reputation. He's a good guy. And I think he's probably given up a lot to come back down here and be a public servant.
Well, he's got a beautiful family. They were settled up there in
North Alabama and Florence, where they were from. And he's a very smart young man, and he'll do a terrific job. And government is lucky to have him, and so is Governor
And
Bentley.
maybe he'll work on some no-bid contracts.
Well, maybe he'll, bless his heart, look at what a mess he's walking into
That's
right
what I'm
now.
saying.
Well, I was going to say that if he gets finance, he gets a hornet's nest, and I bet you he gets a visit from someone over at the AG's office.
Probably.
You know, you don't want to walk in and find an AG's card taped to a crime scene tape.
Well, you know, the good thing is he is a lawyer as well, and he's a good, ethical, upstanding young person.
Seems like
And
it. Seems like
he'll do a
guy.
great job, and there needs to be a fix in that finance office.
Yeah, absolutely, and I wish him all the best. But boy, this is a guy walking on to the Titanic. But anyway, Jack, you have taken an issue over the last several weeks or month with Chip Beaker, who's on the commission that regulates power. He's one of the commissioners. And he was offered a sweetheart deal, basically a lifetime retirement fee from a solar company that was hoping to do business with the power company in Alabama. And the Ethics Commission was tied on letting him take that contract.
Well, and because it's lines across his land, as I understand it, and it was that they were going to pay him $225,000 a year for 20 years. That's an exorbitant price for anyone regulating energy to do business with a company that provides energy. That stunk.
It's egregious.
It is egregious,
And
and
it's
I'm
illegal.
never using that word again on this show. I think that the Ethics Commission had a couple of flips. Jerry Fielding, who had voted to allow it before, voted no. Charles Price, who had voted no before, voted yes. So there was some behind-the-scenes stuff going on that I've been filled in about that I really can't say because I don't have proof yet. But it smells really bad.
But ultimately, the commission
Chip
said
knew
no.
better. That's what makes me mad. He knew better.
Right.
I mean, he's not dumb. And I'm very happy they denied the contract. And there was a little shenanigans going on where they actually wanted to pull this off the agenda and operate on a 2-2 tie vote.
Well,
It's just politics, and it stinks to the high heaven.
Well, we've been looking into it. I had a meeting with Chip Beaker and his attorney. His attorney promised to send me all the emails that they had and all the documents. I guess it must have gone to spam. Maybe it was in spam. Yeah, it was almost a month ago.
And it's James Anderson, who's a lawyer here, who's about to be a judge.
Well, Jack,
and he needs to move expeditiously.
Oh, good. Well, an expedition may be on its way.
Can you spell that?
Are there any cannibals on the expedition?
Cannibals?
Somebody eating somebody. I don't know.
Camels, maybe.
Camels. All right. Well, it's a mess. Chip Beaker should have known better than to even get involved with that. Somebody needs to, whoever his handlers are, advisors are.
Well, we know who, and money talks, and they're all about money. You can always follow the money trail.
Somebody offered me $235,000 a year. I'd leave the PSC in a heartbeat.
I would too. Of course, he's not here. He's not here often enough for it to affect him.
Well, it's a cush job.
But his little consultants are getting paid by all these companies too. So know.
Well, there used to be a law that you had to live in Montgomery if you were on the PSC, and I understand Jeremy Oden took care of that and made it where you don't have to live here anymore.
Poor Jeremy. He just always is getting picked on.
I know.
He's like Charlie Brown.
There might be a reason for that, Bill.
Well, I like Jeremy, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Twinkle is not happy, and we all know if Twinkle's not happy,
ain't nobody happy.
Nobody's happy. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Wow, musical chairs everywhere.
I'm doing my best Bentley impression on Medicaid, just flip-flopping all over the set here.
No kidding. Before we get to Medicaid, which is an important subject, this committee that wants to impeach Governor Bentley met this week. They came out with a ruling that Bentley they were going forward, and they opposed the motion that was put before them by Bentley's lawyers. What was that about, Susan?
Yeah, Chairman Mike Jones, who's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, sent an announcement out, I believe it was Wednesday, saying that they had rejected his request, and that they also rejected his request that there be 3 members that recused themselves from the committee because they had signed the articles of impeachment. Mike Jones pushed back and said, no, this is not a court of law. This is an issue for the House of Representatives, and it will be done by the rules of the House of Representatives.
I mean, Claire, I know you don't think it's going anywhere, and I don't either, but...
I know, I don't think it is either. And I just think, and I like Mike Jones, and I respect him, but this whole process is grandstanding by the House. I mean, quite frankly, 80% of them are people that live in a glass house throwing stones, and I just think this is absolutely ridiculous. Let the legal system handle this with the governor. I mean, the House members do not need to try to impeach this governor. He has done nothing ethically or criminally wrong at this point that we know of.
Well, but you know what? It wasn't grandstanding when they impeached Bill Clinton for the same thing, though, is the thing. Like, and some of these same people were the ones saying, like, oh, Bill Clinton needs to be taken out of office.
But he wasn't.
Right, but my point is that this is politics. The impeachment process is political, and there's no way to say that, like you said, this isn't a court of law. This is the House of Representatives, and so whether it's grandstanding or not, if it's their prerogative to do so.
Well, and look, they're going to do what they're going to do. I think the main reason they're doing this is because they didn't do a thing about Mike Hubbard, and they know it made them look bad, and now they want to act like they're doing something.
Yeah, so they let him sit there with all those indictments, and then bam. They want to take the governor out, and he's not been indicted on anything, and they let that leader, that man or whatever, sit there for 2.5 years.
Well,
it's deplorable.
I think if Bentley's incompetence doesn't take him out, the Attorney General's office very well may, because he's got some problems.
He's got a lot more problems than impeachment.
Right.
Yeah, he's got bigger problems.
But y'all know I was the first one saying this is ridiculous. You can't impeach the governor for this when you let Mike Hubbard sit there. I don't necessarily agree with the impeachment proceedings being brought against the governor. But I do see where, from a political standpoint, by the same argument, you could say all Democrats need to recuse themselves. It just doesn't, you can't take politics out of the process.
Well, it is politics, and that's like
Speaking
Claire
of politics,
said,
what about Medicaid in special session?
Yeah, it looks like it's going down the tubes. There is a crisis, they say. I mean, Medicaid is funded. It's the RCOs that are not funded, and we need to fund those because that's going to bring down the cost of Medicare. That's going to give people better health care, we are told. And so Governor Bentley wants the money, but nobody seems to want to give it to him, Beth.
Well, he's not finding realistic ways to get the money is the thing. I mean, these RCOs, when we set them up, we got federal matching funds to cover them. So if we don't cover the RCOs, we don't just lose what we don't put into it, we lose what we're getting from the federal government too. So this isn't just a dollar-to-dollar thing. It's more like a 3-to-1 ratio that we're losing. But this whole time he said, I'm not going to expand a broken Medicaid. We're going to fix it first, then expand it. No, we're not. He's not trying to fix it. He's going to let this whole thing go under. And now he's sitting here pretending like he cares about all this.
Well, Susan, I mean, as we pointed out before and we've talked about before, it is the very young, the unborn, single women, and the very old that rely on it. Yes, there's some bums in there, right?
Right.
There's some bums, there's some people that shouldn't be getting Medicaid, but by and large, it's the people that need it, right?
And do understand, it's very young, but even if a child is adopted into the very richest family in the state of Alabama, it's still required by law that they have Medicare and Medicaid as a secondary insurance on those children. So this covers all spectrums. From the very poorest of poor to, it covers the children to make sure they are taken care of.
And it's really the elderly that take up the most amount of money and the disabled, while the children make up 50% of those receiving Medicaid. They only take 25%. But really, to your point, if Bentley had expanded Medicaid, that all be history.
Problem. And it'd be fully funded by the federal government for the first, 5 years that it'd be completely funded. That would give us time to find some sort of growth revenue to put in there to cover the 2 to 5% we end up having to cover eventually. I mean, the point is that failing to expand Medicaid broke health care in Alabama because when the Affordable Care Act was implemented, it counted on required expansion. Then when the Supreme Court overturned required expansion, it left this gaping hole in health care that we don't have a way to patch.
Well, it seems like Obamacare is going up in flames anyway.
Right, it's going up in flames, but let's step back. This issue at Medicaid's been going on for 25 years.
Right.
I mean, and to your point, or to make a difference, we've always received, when we put in $1 at the federal government, we receive $1.50 back. That's been going on in our Medicaid agency, and working with Medicare and Medicaid, and working with HHS as it used to be, and CMS, and we've always had the quirkiest formula for Medicaid ever in the entire of almost any state in the country.
Well, Lurleen Wallace put it into effect, in 71, I think, is when Medicaid came
By
out.
executive order, actually.
Right, and so and then our congressional delegation for years has had to go up there and work with CMS to get us out of trouble.
Yeah.
So had he expanded it, I can assure you, in those 5 years, they wouldn't have fixed this hole because they hadn't fixed it in 25 years.
Well, they're not going to fix it until they're forced to. Somebody's going to force them to. Of course, I think if you get if you get Hillary Clinton as president, it's going to go to a single payer system. Anyway, this is not working.
Well, the point is that we're running out of options here. Like, we still have to fund our part of it. And, we've about drained every savings account the state has dry. We are trying to now use the BP money to pay for this. You can't do that. That's not possible. Lottery wouldn't even cover it long term. So we've got to find some kind of permanent solution.
Well, they were thinking about taking a bond out, Let's borrow and spend a little more money.
And this governor has squandered hundreds of thousands of dollars on junk. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars on junk, which we'll get to at another time. So, Beth, you've taken issue with the Love Gov's love of children.
Because I cannot explain to you how angry it made me to see him tweeting out all these pictures about Alabama cares about our neediest citizens. And, the thing is, he can't say, I need to keep getting certain people paid, or I need to make sure that I'm getting what I want with this lottery. So he's using children so that he can get Medicaid coverage through a lottery. And this isn't about children at all. If it were about children, he would have expanded Medicaid and given coverage. It's not about that. This is the governor's got a dog in this fight he's not talking about.
Well, I mean, they want to expand Medicaid. They want a lottery. They want a lot of things. Not expand it, but fund it. They want a lot of things. I don't even know if any of us know what is all out there right now. I mean, it's a mess in the clear.
Yeah, it is a mess. And I think he does truly care about the citizens of this state and the children. And I don't know if he has a dog in any fight with
well, we're going to eventually
Nobody knows what's down under the pile.
Well,
okay?
I can tell you there's a lot of rumors running around about what happens if a lottery doesn't pass.
Well, I hear somebody got stuck in the elevator this week, the Wallace elevator. But we'll talk about that next week. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.